Hello, and welcome to those who will be viewing this recording here shortly. We are very pleased today to kick off our conversation in Senate District 20, which encompasses parts of Franklin, Kenton, Owen, Gallatin, and Carroll counties. We'll be hearing first today from candidate Teresa Barton. An invitation was also extended to candidate Jay Williams. He was unable to attend. So today we will only be hearing from candidate Teresa Barton. So to get us started today, I want to take a few moments to introduce myself and to thank Teresa for her time today. My name is Benjamin Geese, and I am the Director of Early Childhood Policy and Practice for the Pritchard Committee. And at the Pritchard Committee, we strive to ensure a big, bold future for all Kentuckians. And while we know that the path to a larger life begins with a quality education for all, birth through post-secondary, we also understand the power of civic engagement. Strong civic engagement is a key ingredient in a healthy society. One of the ways civic engagement is measured is by voter turnout. And at Pritchard, we track voter turnout as one of 13 metrics in our Big Bold Future National Rankings report to measure citizen engagement. You will hear Pritchard's Big Bold Future report referenced throughout today's forum. The report is used to measure Kentucky's progress on educational and quality of life outcomes and ranks Kentucky's progress in relation to other states. The report is a helpful guide in determining where our Commonwealth is excelling and where Kentucky needs more help, putting all citizens on that path to a larger life. In the 2020 Kentucky general election, we ranked 30th in voter turnout. By conducting several candidate forums in the build-up to the general election in November, our hope is to see more Kentuckians become engaged, informed citizens and to exercise their right to vote. In the words of our president and CEO, Bridget Blum, engaged communities with families and children at the center are vital to improving education outcomes in Kentucky. And just a few reminders before we hop into our questions today with candidate Barton. The Pritchard Committee is a nonpartisan, non-governmental organization. As such, we do not endorse candidates. However, we do promote strong civic engagement and candidate education. Please also remember that these forums are made available to the general public via the Pritchard Committee website, social media, and to members of the local press corps. And lastly, to ensure fairness, again, we want to state that we extended an invitation to both candidates. Today, we're hearing only from candidate Barton. So without much further ado, let's welcome Teresa Barton, a candidate for Senate District 20. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're very glad that you could join today.
Thanks.
You know, one of the important things that we want to focus on today is not so much you as a candidate, but you as a person. We think it's very important to get to know the person behind all of the yard signs, the mailers, the emails. And so we're going to kick off today with more of a personal question. And that's this. When you think about the call to public service, what was your call? Really, what's your why for doing what you're doing and seeking election to the Kentucky State Senate? And is there a leader that you most admire and hope to emulate should you make it to the state Senate?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. On the other side, for me, though, it really comes down to probably my history, my background. I am a lifelong Franklin County resident, lived in Kentucky, obviously my entire life. Education has been the cornerstone for everything that I've been involved in. So this fits really good with where I believe. The reason that I wanted to run in this particular race, the Senate seat for quite a while. I was a Franklin County Judge Executive for a couple terms. I've worked in higher education early on in my career, and it's just one of those things that it's very important that we have folks who really care about Kentucky. We care about communities. I have a theme that I've used from the very beginning. It's Kentucky first. I'm sure it sounds a little hokey to some folks, but to me, it's the test that I'm going to apply to everything that I do. My public service dates back to volunteering as a young lady. I have been on more than 24 committees or groups in my career, starting when I started working higher ed through state government. But that Kentucky First has sort of been anything that I do. Does it put Kentucky communities? Does it put Kentucky families? And is it the right thing for the state as a whole? So when I look at this district, as I said, I'm jumping around a bit. When I was judge executive, I served for 2 terms or just shy of 2 terms. I worked in the Fletcher administration, drug control policy. Then I was in the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet. We did a lot with school safety, and a lot of those measures. So I'm kind of relating it to some of the things that you got that are important really to the Pritchard Committee. But I think it's just service. It's just giving back. I've been so fortunate in my life. I was raised in a very moderate upbringing. Dad, union tool and die maker. Mom was a waitress. Dad obviously went to vocational school after the military. Not many people probably know my mom didn't graduate high school. Eastern Kentucky roots. But she made sure that education was important to us. She made sure that that we gave back regardless of our place in life. So I think that just continued on with the giving back and wanting to be part of the Senate, making sure that we have folks who are reasonable, who are really respectful, responsible. And I think I'm that person. I know I'm that person. I hope the voters choose that I'm that person, down the road. But more importantly, I think it's just about giving back to your state. I've been very fortunate along the way. And I just think we need good citizen legislators who really care about the community. Franklin County is truly much like a lot of the rural, more the river counties that some people refer to. We're very similar. We just happen to be the capital. You've been here, it's a really small town. So I related, once I saw the redistricting, I really related to the rural areas, the farmers, the working class folks who are in this district. And I really thought it'd be a good fit. So that's sort of the long way around to get to it. But I think I'm the right person at the right time to get into this race.
Well, very good. And thank you so much for that answer. I'm sure that in your campaign, and most certainly should you find yourself in the state Senate after the election this November, no doubt there'll be many challenges, but many opportunities. And we know that that's very much the same for children and students across Kentucky. We know that they both face many challenges, but also many opportunities. Most importantly, we know that what happens beyond the classroom in particular will have a big impact on their educational outcomes. We like to say that kids don't grow up in silos, that poverty will affect health, health will affect education, education will affect safety, and so on and so forth. So as you think about all of the issues surrounding Kentucky students, what is your particular interest? And is there an area that you want to be recognized in as the leader in Frankfort when it comes to education, children, and their families?
That's really, again, these are hard questions because we have, I think, so many things to address. I did look at my notes. I looked at a previous interview, and I was thinking some of the things that the more seasoned legislators came up with, and they're probably not much different than someone looking from the outside who hasn't been in the legislature. I think probably right now, I look at making sure we take care of our teachers. I know that may sound like, well, we're starting up here when it involves the children. We have to make sure that we retain good teachers, that we recruit good teachers. And I say good teachers, they're all good. Some are better than others. And why is that? What is it that drives them internally? I want to make sure that teacher retention and teacher recruitment is key. And I think that comes down to some things we'll probably talk later about, which is, that comes to the benefits and some of those things. So that's kind of what we can control. From an instructional side, I've heard people talk about parental involvement. And my parents were very involved. It was a different time when I grew up. So parents weren't always called to school unless there was a problem. But once we got home, my parents were involved. They worked all day. They couldn't get away and do some of the things that parents do today, which is outstanding. But I think parental involvement is key. And something that troubles me a lot is that's the safety aspect. To be known for, I would hope that I could be part of legislation that will truly make a difference in just the safety measures within schools. A child should never have to go to school. I know hungry is one issue, unprepared is another issue, but also fearful. With our media, the way it's a 24/7, people talk about things that occur in other areas. They expose children to things they should be focusing on learning, and for them to be concerned and worried about their safety. That's probably an area that I really want to focus on. I was involved during the Fletcher administration. It was the campus safety. We had a steering committee and a task force. And to me, that's one of the important issues that I think if we could take off the kids' plates and the teachers' plates, it'd be very important. Do I have a solution? Not exactly. I know we have a Center for School Safety, it's very active. But again, I think it goes back to teachers being prepared, having the right folks teaching the children at the right ages. I think there are a lot of things that we need to work on, but those are pretty important to me.
Well, very good. And thank you so much for that answer. We certainly appreciate it. 2 years ago, the Pritchard Committee unveiled a 6-year plan to add $1 billion annually to the state's education budget in strategic areas where the investment can be measured for impact. We called it the Pritchard Committee's Big Bold Ask. And even with the impact of the pandemic, the General Assembly made serious progress on that ask in the first 2 budget years of the plan. Those were with key investments in things like full-day kindergarten, broadband internet access, early literacy, and Kentucky's state university system. The remaining components of the Big Bold Ask include needed investments in childcare, in preschool, and in a fund for teaching excellence. Recently, the Pritchard Committee and a team of statewide partners released a Fragile Ecosystem 4. Will Kentucky childcare survive when the dollars run out? A Fragile Ecosystem 4, a survey completed by over 500 of Kentucky's 1,600 childcare providers, and from 95 out of 120 Kentucky counties, found that once current federal American Rescue Plan relief dollars run out, over 70% of childcare providers said they'd be forced to raise tuition for working parents. 40% said that they would have to cut staff wages. Another 30% indicated they would lay off staff. And 20% of childcare providers said they would permanently close their childcare center. And currently, only about half of all Kentucky children arrive to kindergarten prepared. And we as a state rank 41st in the nation in the number of 3 and 4-year-olds enrolled in preschool. That's a fall from 28th in the nation in 2008. So here's our question. How can Kentucky ensure more children access to high-quality early learning?
Again, these are tough questions, and I'm really grateful to the Pritchard Committee though for taking it on. There are just so many issues surrounding early childhood development that I'm seeing. I have a 5-year-old grandson and a 2-year-old granddaughter, and one on the way. And I want to make sure they have a bright future as well. That's another really good reason I would love to be in the General Assembly to see what I can do to help. I'm far from an expert on any of these issues. I've never been a teacher. My aunts were teachers. I adored them. It was something that I just had such respect for, and I feel like that has gone just a little bit. But kind of back to your question, we need to focus. It's not always about the money. You have to have the money, obviously, to develop the programs, to educate the children and make sure they're taken care of. Something that does worry me, though, is the instruction or the lack of instruction from that early childhood time. All-day kindergarten is phenomenal. It was so needed. As far behind as we are, that to me is the key time when children have that chance to be nurtured and taught the fundamentals, how to study, what they need to learn, student interaction, respect for teachers. That's when those things start to occur. And knowing that when the money runs out, that we're going to fall back again. And I've got a real problem with us not focusing more time and energy and frankly funding in those areas. I feel like that's something that we just have to focus on. The child care, I hear this all across the counties that, that I've been campaigning in. They talk about the lack of child care. We've had, I believe, 2 or 3 close here in town, just closed doors. And then you have the few who are left over scrambling to find a location to take their children so they can work. But that quality, we sought out a few here he's now 5, he's in kindergarten at a local school here. And I know my daughter-in-law and son really struggled to find the right fit so he could have a quality preschool education experience. But you have conscientious parents who that's their number one concern. You have other parents that are struggling just to get by. Like you mentioned, some of the poverty issues that we're facing across the state. And I do hope that we can take the effort, the money, the programs, and we can invest in these early childhood programs. I just think that's going to be extremely important. I'm getting a little more concerned about teachers as well. I'm on our local hospital board, and we have nursing shortages. We have teacher shortages, and I hate to bring all that in, but it's extremely important. I'm here in the home of Kentucky State University, my alma mater. And, I know they're producing some teacher candidates, and I want to make sure that we continue to enhance being a teacher, what that means and what it can mean for your long-term career, because it truly is a career. It's not just a job. So those are just a few of the things that I think I'd like to help focus on. Again, I'm not an expert in education by any means, but I will absolutely, I will be there to help make that happen. I have been endorsed by the Kentucky educators. I know we want to stay away from the political stuff a little bit, but I think because they know that I care, that I will be there, to see what can we do to help you? What can we do to make not only your job better, but make sure that children have the opportunity. Like I said, I was fortunate. Along the way that I had great teachers. To this day, I can remember my first and second grade teacher and everyone who helped me along the way. And it's just a different time. They're focused on so many things, they're pulled in so many directions that I just like we need to make sure that we have the right focus at the right level to help our children.
Very good. Thank you so much. I know as we think about teacher shortages, that's something we're hearing a lot about nationally right now. So let me ask you this question. How can state leaders work to ensure that Kentucky's best and brightest both enter and remain in the teaching field? And what are some steps that can be taken to ensure quality teachers in every Kentucky classroom?
Again, there are just no easy answers to a lot of these questions, but I think, from the retention standpoint is to make sure that they have the benefits they need. They're public workers. They are folks who enter into a system and to make sure that they have a defined system. So when they get out, they do have the benefits they need. With teachers not paying into Social Security, I think that's a huge issue, and not getting raises along the way when they do retire on the back end. I spoke with the retired teachers recently, and to me that's an extremely important part of it as well. But I think making sure that those defined plans are in place. I can't tell you the number of young teachers that I've known over the last, since my boys are in school and my grandchildren now, that they don't have enough money in their classrooms to do what they need to do to teach. Those resources are important too. So I think each district is very unique. When I look at Owen, Gallatin, Carroll, you look at the plethora of schools in Boone and Kenton, you have a lot of private schools, a lot of public schools as well. Franklin County, we have 2 systems and a few private systems here. And I know they struggle. They struggle to keep good teachers or just teachers at all. And again, I think making sure they have the benefits they need and the tools they need. I'm all for accountability. We absolutely need to make sure that we have the best and the brightest, as you said, but give them the tools they need. Oftentimes I think sometimes I would say out of frustration, throw up their hands and say, I can't make this work. The number of young ladies, particularly, I'm sure there are men as well, but young ladies that I have known have left the profession. They can make more money elsewhere. They felt safer in their job. They, it was just so much administrative work that it was overwhelming. It wasn't that, back in the day when I was there, well, teachers get this break and they get a little bit of time off. They don't get any of that these days. They are constantly, their work is never done, it seems, because of the other reporting and the additional things that are on top of trying to teach the children. They need planning time. I think that's extremely important. So there's just a few things that I would love to be part of if elected, but also if I get the opportunity sitting on either a committee or being in the Senate.
Very good. And thank you for those reflections. We spent some time today talking about the need to get high quality individuals into the classroom and to retain those high quality individuals who are already there. We're going to spend a little bit of time next talking about the quality of curriculum in Kentucky. For example, the high school diploma. When we think about a high school diploma, it should be evidence that a student is ready to succeed after high school. Unfortunately, too many students today graduate diploma in hand without having mastered the knowledge and skills required to be successful in college, career, and life. The Pritchard Community Community Profiles for all school districts show the state graduation rate in 2021 at 90%. However, the state rate for meeting college readiness benchmarks in math, for example, is at 30%. And despite Kentucky ranking third in the nation in high school graduation, Kentucky ranks 44th in the nation in higher education attainment and in median household income. Mm-hmm. So with those facts in mind, how can Kentucky ensure both rigorous, meaningful coursework and provide the support students need to successfully transition to their life after high school?
If I had the answer to that, I would be a well sought after educator. I do feel that oftentimes we are not focusing on the important things to prepare a child for success. It doesn't have to be college. We have tremendous trade schools. We have vocational schools, of course, in our high school as well. It's unfortunate that we graduate so many who appear to be ill-prepared in a lot of ways. I think what I'd like to see, and I've seen a lot of that here in Franklin County in particular, we have Georgetown University that has agreed to allow students to attend tuition free. I would like to see more interaction between, I'm just thinking locally, because of my knowledge, it would be Georgetown University, Georgetown College, Georgetown University. They change their names when they become a certain status. We have Midway, we have Georgetown, we have Kentucky State University. And I would love to see more interaction to make sure that a lot of folks get, the college credit along the way. Let's see if we can do more nurturing to make sure that when we identify the areas where they are lacking, that, we have, a track that will help them get to where they need to be. Not everyone has to go to college. That's something that I think we're finding out more and more, particularly with the trades, when we look at the need. I mean, we have workforce shortages everywhere, be it electricians, plumbers, whatever the case may be. But I'd like to see more interaction, maybe from the college level, to find out what they need and what's lacking. I'm sure there's more accountability along the way that Department of Education can evaluate the schools to see if there is an area in which they could enhance the learning, make sure the classroom work is done, and help children understand what, you just don't want to teach, I don't believe, to master a task. You want to teach to make a child, well-rounded, to make them or put them in a position to be prepared to go to college or go in the workforce, or, some join the military. My youngest son ended up joining the military. Oldest son, went straight through, and he's the one that just continues on, and it seems like it works for him. But not everyone is built that way, and they all learn differently. So I would hope that we could look at the curriculum side, and there are a lot of administrators within these districts that I know focus on the attainment levels, making sure that they're prepared. Maybe we could look a little more toward that area and have some more interaction with the universities as well, just to bridge that gap of any lack or anything that falls through the holes.
Well, thank you very much for that response. Earlier you also mentioned about the role of parental involvement, which we know is so crucial to success in school and in life. At the Pritchard Committee, we believe that a child's first, best, and most important teacher is their parent. And so often we hear that parents feel left out of the education policy making process. So how can legislators work to involve those parents earlier in that decision-making process?
It comes down to communication. I think the school system, they obviously have the students' best interest at heart. Communicating with the parents. I know that, I can only go from current experience because I know things evolve and change over the years, but I do know that the 5-year-old grandson, I know there's a lot of communication that goes on virtually every day. If there's something that happened at school, if there's an incident, if there is something that he needs to work on, something he needs to focus on, maybe it's a behavior issue that he was having a really rough day. That's communicated. And I think that's probably the key in parental involvement, inviting them to school, make sure they understand what's going on. The younger children don't always have that understanding and level of responsibility of what needs to happen next or what needs to come home. But make sure that there are ways to communicate. And I think they've made great strides in the last several years, just from my personal experience. I never heard from anyone at school, it seemed. I was there a lot, but it was for different reasons. But it was, just the communication I feel like is picking up, and I hope that will continue to improve. But I think giving parents opportunity, maybe even some small coursework for parents to understand their level of involvement. If you were not raised with, your mom and dad or your family or whoever your guardian is, if you weren't raised in a way that they were involved and they took an interest in your education, you didn't learn that. You never knew that. So to help these young parents today who have children in school, to help them understand their role and their level of involvement, I think will go a long way. So again, I think it comes to communication, just reaching out, making sure, again, it's one more responsibility that you're putting on the teachers, which is they have enough on their plate as it is. But I just think making sure they know what's going on in the classroom, how their student or how their son or daughter is performing, and understanding expectations, because oftentimes there's a disconnect, I think, between the student, the teacher, and then once they're lost, it's very hard to catch back up. So that parent bridging that, I think, is an extremely important role. And not everyone, as I said, was raised in a way that you understood the value of that. So, maybe a little more work to do in that area.
Well, thank you so much for that answer. If a parent or just an interested community member wanted to have a greater voice in policymaking, what are some good ways for those individuals to get a hold of you or your campaign?
You can absolutely email me. It is Barton, the number 4 Senate. I'm making sure that I'm telling you right. Barton4Senate@gmail.com. You can check out anything you want on my website and contact me as well. And it's Barton4KYSenate.com. But I don't mind to give my cell number. I can give it. I did when I was judge executive. I've had it all these years. It's 502-330-2331. Text me if you will. There's a lot happening right now in the next 28 days or so of this campaign, but I'm always happy to respond. And I love when people call with suggestions. It's not always that they're calling to tell you something or to force something on you or explain what you're not doing right. But I love those calls when they say, hey, we think that you might be interested in learning more about this. That to me has been very helpful in this campaign, very much appreciated, because you can't be an expert in everything. You certainly can't. I've been doing energy efficiency for 14 years, and I was in, the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet. I was county judge executive. So I have a lot of background, but I certainly can't master everything, and I'm not an expert in all of it either. So, but thank you all for what you do. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. We appreciate what you're doing and being here today. We do have just one last question, and we want to make sure that we give you the last word here in today's forum. So here it is. If there's an individual who shows up in your district on election day to the ballot box, and really their sole reason for voting is they want to select a candidate who really cares and has the chops to make a big difference in education, birth through post-secondary, why should that individual vote for you?
Because I am truly the candidate that will listen. I'm the one that will make a difference when it comes to education. I think there's really nothing more important in the future of our state. As I mentioned, talk about Kentucky first. It sounds like a cliche type theme, but we know in order to make Kentucky first, we're going to have an educated workforce. We know that we're going to have to focus our time, our money, and our effort on education. I'm that candidate. I obviously can't speak for my opponent, but I do know that he supports some things that really would not be beneficial, in my opinion, to public schools. And education of all sorts are very expensive, very very important. You get to paying for education, or you can go to a public school. And I just think that I would be the person that would really make a difference in the future of Kentucky when it comes to education, making sure our children are taken care of, making sure they're safe. Those are just things that are important to me, and I would be honored to have their vote, their support. And again, I'm open to discuss anything that we think will make a difference for the future of Kentucky.
Very good. Thank you so much. Just in wrapping up, again, this has been Teresa Barton, a candidate for the Kentucky State Senate in District 20. That encompasses Franklin, Owen, Gallatin, Carroll, and Kenton counties. We again want to state that an opportunity was also extended to Senate candidate Jay Williams. Unfortunately, he was unable to join us. But again, we want to thank both candidates for their time, for putting their necks out there, so to speak, in seeking to serve our Commonwealth. So thank you to both candidate Barton and to candidate Williams. We appreciate what you're doing out there on the campaign trail.